Lady Margaret was standing in her own room door, a comb in her long yellow hair, when who did she spy but sweet William and his bride, as to the churchyard they drew near. The day passed away and the night came on. Most of the men were asleep. Lady Margaret appeared, all dressed in white, standing at his bed feet. She said, "How do you like your bed, and how do you like your sheet?"
Well, I'm an Ozarks girl. I grew up here, and lucky enough to have a grandmother and grandfather who had roots steeped in folklore. And any time that I was within their company, I had big ears for a little person and would listen to all their stories and their conversations and all the people who lived here, and I just fell in love with that type of thing and felt like I could make a contribution by passing it on in any way that I could, and decided that because I was an artist and an art teacher and loved traditional music and dance and folklore, that I would try doing my own spin on trying to pass down the history of the Ozarks.
Do you think that some of that exposure as a child kind of led you to become an art teacher in the first place too?
Well, I never really thought that I would become an art teacher. And it wasn't really my choice to do that. I just had a lot of people tell me that I would be good at that. I was the type of person who was really afraid to get in front of a classroom to talk. And so I just didn't see myself being in that capacity. My first job choice was to be a mermaid. And then I found out I had to live underwater, and I didn't care for swimming, so no.
Kind of put a kink in that.
Put a kink in that one, yeah. No, but all my teachers at school, I mean, even from first grade, I was not a very good student, academic student, and was in trouble quite a bit. I guess maybe because I was bored, or I don't exactly know what, but luckily I had a teacher in first grade that saw that I had a talent, and she, instead of punishing me at recess for not having my work done, she would let me do set designs and make costumes and masks for the plays that we had in our school. So she'd written a note saying that I had that talent, and then I had a fifth grade teacher who recommended that I go to the art museum for some classes.
Wow.
And didn't really have art in elementary school when I was growing up. It was just that if you were lucky enough to have a classroom teacher who had that inkling, and you got to do some art projects in class, that you were lucky, that I was lucky.
Wow.
Yeah, so I didn't really have art until I was in junior high. And the teachers there, like I said, they encouraged me, and after I graduated from high school, I didn't even think that I would go to college because I was just a big scaredy cat. And somehow my mom and dad finagled a way for me to get some paperwork filled out to go to school at the Ozarks, and I was accepted and went 2 weeks after I graduated from high school.
Wow.
And the only thing I knew how to do was art, so I declared to be an art major, and that's
The rest is history.
the rest is history. Best job I've ever had, and it's, you know, I would not have picked that for myself, I don't think, but the universe just came together, and there I was.
Was being in front of a classroom as difficult as you thought it was going to be?
Not exactly. My senior year, I was supposed to have taken a speech class for a requirement to graduate.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was the last class that I took because they had to drag me in kicking and screaming. I just thought, I do not want to do this class. And the teacher I had was really, really good. He was one of my favorite teachers.
Mm.
And I ended up pulling an A out of that class. And then the first class that I signed up for in college was speech class.
Wow.
Yeah. So again, I just had the best of luck when it came to teachers helping me along the way.
Well, kind of jumping ahead 40 years or so from that point until we get to the point when you started learning about crankies. Can you kind of share about that and how you first discovered them? You know, you've talked about, and then what was it about them that really just got your attention?
I first found out about them just scrolling through YouTube segments on my phone and finding out, you know, just plugging in. I plugged in traditional music is what I plugged in, and folk music, and found out that there was a couple of women named Anna and Elizabeth, and they were phenomenal singers and musicians, but then they had this extra little oomph about them where one of them was an artist and a quilter, and they grabbed my attention, and I noticed that they were doing these little projects called crankies that had quite a history behind them, dating back, you know, to maybe the late 1600s, early 1700s. And because I loved history and the music, it grabbed a hold of me. That was probably 10 years ago. And just like a boomerang that you toss out that just keeps coming back to you, there were different things about it that it just kept grabbing me. Like I found out that, you know, there's the music, there's theater, there's lighting, there's illustration, there's storytelling, all of the things that I absolutely love. And they were all in this one package. And so that's why I decided that out of all of the different types of arts that I've created over the course of my lifetime, I believe that the crankies are the type of art that I am meant to do.
Well, for someone who may not have seen a cranky before, you talked about in the past kind of, you know, the Appalachian drive-in movie theater analogy. And can you kind of explain, like, hopefully somebody watching this will see the video and be able to see it for themselves momentarily, but just kind of explain what it is. Is it something you watch? Is it something you listen to? How does it work?
I would first describe it, I mean, there's different ways that you can make them. You can make them out of suitcases, you can make them out of cigar boxes, you can make them out of oatmeal boxes. You can get really elaborate with them. But I like to describe them as maybe taking the drawer out of your dresser and then knocking the bottom of it out and then turning it up vertical, drilling a couple of holes in the top and then all the way through into the empty space, dropping some dowel rods in and then adding cranks, and then you're going to load up either a scroll of fabric or paper that's been illustrated to depict a story or a song, a poem, or you can just do anything with them. It's just really great, really great. Graphic novels, all kinds of things.
From your research and what you've learned, like what is kind of the origin of these, or the overarching parts of their history, how they came to be?
That is a little bit harder for me to answer. I do know that by studying under Sue Truman, who has a website called the Cranky Factory, she knows a lot more about the history of them. And she said that they started out as being called moving panoramas. And they would range from anything from just a family or community entertainment to advertisements for new businesses. And I do know that they do date back quite some time.
And I know when we talked before, it didn't seem though that they were very much around here, at least as we've been able to tell in the Ozarks. Like they were in Appalachia, but for whatever reason they probably just weren't here very much. Which I find interesting, because we parallel Appalachia so much. I wonder why they didn't end up more over here, but who knows?
No, I don't know if it's, maybe, who knows, maybe there were some. They just, because of the materials that they were made out of, and that they're really, maybe there just weren't people that were in the right place at the right time to document them.
Maybe sometimes somebody will clean out the back attic or a closet or something and find the remnants of one. So after you got interested in these and decided that you really wanted to pursue potentially making your own, learning more about them, certainly, like, what was kind of the process at that point for how you began to learn more about them?
After seeing the videos of Anna and Elizabeth, I started doing more research about other artists who did that type of work. And I probably drove every person crazy, because I was just so on fire about how excited I was to find this, and that this was going to be the new type of art that was going to be the only kind of art that I wanted to do now. And so in telling all these different people would plug in or do research, and they would send me links. I have a good friend that lives in Iowa that she and I took a class together in North Carolina at the John C. Campbell Folk School. And this was a movable print class. Well, after she and I became acquainted and I told her about the crankies, then she treated me to a week-long workshop of puppetry around the world, and it was sponsored by the Jim Henson Foundation.
Really?
And so his family was there, and people from all around the world came, and we gathered at in Minneapolis, Minnesota, a couple of summers ago.
Wow.
And there were several people there doing crankies, and one of my idols was going to be teaching a class there. Catherine Fahey from Baltimore, Maryland was there. My friend Elizabeth paid for it and enrolled us, and after she had found out about it, so much time had gone by that most of the classes had filled up. And so she asked me which of those that I wanted to sign up for. And I told her, of course, I wanted to do Catherine Fahey's class. Well, it was closed. Mm-hmm. And so because I had watched her on YouTube and I knew what she looked like, I actually stalked her at the workshop. And anytime I could even get close to her, I'd say, you're the reason why I came to this, and I really would like to take your class. And I guess I just annoyed her so much that she just finally said, oh, just come and be in the class. And it was a delight to be in the class, but it was also very agonizing because the class was only 2 hours long, and she just kind of whet my appetite and started this hunger in me that, I had to find different ways that, okay, she's giving me this, now I want this, how am I going to get this? And I just started going all around.
Wow.
Trying to find people that would help me and to network. My idea was, or my goal was, and still is, to start the Midwest Cranky Festival here in the Ozarks, because they have one in Seattle, Washington. They have one in Toronto, Canada. They have one in Baltimore, Maryland, but none in the Midwest. And so when I dream, I like to dream really big and like to accomplish my goals. And so even though it's taken me close to 10 years and I still don't have it completely accomplished, I'm biting off all these little bits, taking baby steps, building toward getting this accomplished.
I can't wait for it to be accomplished.
No, I can't wait for it to be either. It's hard to be slow, but I can see why, in the caliber that I want it to be, I know I have to go slow. And even though there's setbacks, there's reasons why. I have to encounter those, because it's going to lead me someplace else or to someone else who's going to intensify, enrich what I already have.
It'll be worth it in the end.
Oh yeah.
Well, so you kind of got really interested after that latest class, and then after that, how did work begin on the particular cranky with Lady Margaret that you've been working on recently? I mean, was it that had you already started forming an idea for that class, and then it kind of got accelerated, or was that the point where you're like, I want to figure out my plan and really invest time in this first project?
How Lady Margaret came about was that because of my love of history and my love of folk music, I'd gone to see Cold Mountain, the book written by Charles Fraser, but then they made the movie of it. And there was a compilation of different artists singing different songs, and I bought the soundtrack because I loved the movie so much. And so I would listen to it over and over again, and there just happened to be this one song that just kept haunting me. And I listened to it, and being the artist, I didn't really have the idea of the cranky in mind, but I just kept getting all these visual images that that I would keep in the back of my mind, and I just kept thinking, for some reason there's something that I need to do with this. And then at that same time, I was looking at Anne and Elizabeth and their crankies and listening to their songs, and something just clicked, and that's the one that I was going to do. And so I went to the puppetry festival and got a little bit more battery charged, and then I found out through some people at the puppetry festival that the John C. Campbell Folk School was going to be offering a cranky class, and that Anna was going to be teaching the class. And I thought, oh my gosh, there's another one of my idols that I need to wrap around my finger so that she'll come to Missouri and help me do a cranky festival. Well, I signed up for the class, and little did I know that the teacher has to commit a couple of years ahead of time
Mm-hmm.
so that the folk school can print their catalog. And in between the time that I signed up and the time that the class was going to be offered, Anna decided that she wanted to become a mother, and the pregnancy kind of threw a wrench in my plans in getting to meet her. I still haven't met her yet. But she pulled in a really great substitute, Sue Truman, who has the Cranky website, another idol. And like I said, I just keep getting these. It's like I throw a rock in the pond and there's like all these rings that radiate out. And each ring is a different person that I need to pick up or I need to meet to network and build better. So when I took the class, Sue Truman sent out a letter saying, please be prepared when you come to class with an idea of the story that you want to present, because we don't have much time and we have to work really fast. And so Lady Margaret was my choice. And again, a week wasn't long enough to do anything. It just made me more hungry for, what I needed to do. And because she was so impressive, and I wanted her to come to the Midwest Cranky Festival to be a presenting artist, I really, really worked hard in her class. But like I said, the week wasn't long enough. And so I told her that in our parting of ways that I would like to talk to her every week and let her be my teacher, kind of like an independent study. And so I would do some work and then I would show her what I've done, and with her encouragement, it kept me going for over a year. And I would build on it and again throw that rock in the pond and let little ripples hit me, and I'd find out new classes to take or new people to meet that I thought would be of a big help to inspire me to do a better job.
Do you have any idea how many hours you've invested in this so far?
Oh gosh. Counting the brain work from like 10 years ago? Oh gosh, I have no idea. But it's never off my mind. I think about it every day. Even after I've completed, I still think about it every day.
Well, and for someone, like, obviously this is a huge commitment but passion for you too. What is it about it that just grabbed you so much?
Well, like I said, it's I had so much experience with tradition and folklore and characters brought on by.
Interruption. No. Right.
Uh-oh. With my grandmother and my dad, just starting that with me when I was a very, very young child. And then having these experiences with storytelling and folk music and history, and I kind of lost my track there.
No, it just, you kind of said it before too, it's just, why is it so important to you, or why has this captured your attention so much? That you don't, it's not a burden to invest so much time, it's something you get excited about.
Oh yeah, well it's just that it has all the components that I really love, like the art, theater, music, lighting, puppetry. It's just all wrapped up in one package, so instead of doing a bunch of them, I can throw all those
Skill sets in one.
Yeah.
Well, so I lost the question for just a second. So you went out to North Carolina, And I remember, if I remember this correctly from the interview, that was where the cemetery was that inspired some of the with the rubbings. But can you kind of, go through that and then kind of go through, why, I guess these are your two questions. One, why to you is symbolism important? And is it something you feel is important to include, or do you include it because you just like it? And then what are some of the sources of inspiration for symbolism that you've used in the cranky?
Cemeteries have always been a real draw for me. And again, it's because of my upbringing. My dad and my grandma, we would go, to the cemetery for decoration day. And as they were walking around the cemetery, again, I would be listening while they were reading the names of the headstones and telling stories about all these different people that they knew from the past, which really fascinated me. And because I was an artist, even at a young age, I paid attention to the carvings and the letter style on the headstones. And so I've always had an interest in that. And even when we go on family trips, I do research on the cemeteries in the areas that we're going to be visiting and drag my family along. And we, even though I might not know someone there, I like to go look and see who's there, how old is the cemetery, and what do the messages say, and what can I learn about these people because of the stone that was chosen for them. Did they choose it themselves? Did someone choose it for them? And what kind of like the letter style or the carving, the florals or whatever it is that they have on them. It just, even though that person can't speak anymore, there's things there that you can still read and find out a lot about them. Even though there's no one there to tell you about them, you can get little bits and pieces by just looking at what's there in front of you.
It's like each one is an individual story.
Yeah.
Are there, this is sort of a tangent, but from the cemeteries you've gone to, do you see a lot of commonalities, or is it really different from place to place where you've gone?
There is a lot of commonality, and I believe that's because, the immigrants brought their symbolism with them from their countries, and then that's transposed into cemeteries on the East Coast, and then through the Appalachian Mountains and into the Ozarks. I haven't really spent a lot of time at cemeteries west of Missouri, but spent a lot of time in the South and in the East, and some in the North.
I know, we started this with the letters from that cemetery in North Carolina were integrated into the cranky, but what were some other cemetery iconography that you used in the cranky as well?
There were a lot of because I'm an artist and I was looking for things to tie the story together, I would look for examples of flora that would decorate the headstone, and I would do rubbings of those, and then had plans to use that to frame different segments of the story, but also use it as repetition to unify the story. And as I was going around doing rubbings, I noticed that a lot of the rubbings would have, again, a story to tell, like the love between a husband and a wife, And oh gosh,
Did you mention?
not thinking very well today.
Oh,
Sorry.
no, it's totally, it's all good. Were there birds that represent? They were from a tombstone as well, that you mentioned in there. Or am I remembering that wrong?
I think, what all did I use? Oh, I think the most prevalent bit of symbolism that I used in Lady Margaret was of the weeping willow tree, because I saw that on several different headstones, not just in our area, but back east and in the south. And being a lover of trees and being an artist, that was one that really caught my attention. So after I did the rubbings, then I threw that rock in the pond again and found out about a class in Kansas City where there was going to be a gentleman from London that was going to do a cemetery iconography class. And intrigued, I thought that was something that I needed for my crankies. So I had already done the rubbings, but I wanted the information behind it.
Well, and then you mentioned the class at MSU too about folklore. Was there anything specific that came out of that influenced the cranky, or was it just a good foundation for what you were trying to do overall?
Oh, what was that again?
The class that you took at MSU for folklore.
Oh,
Were there specific takeaways that you see through the cranky, or was it more of a foundation for just awareness that might have sort of bled in certain ways, but not anything specific?
Yeah. I took the class, of course, I already had the cranky in my head, and I'd already taken a couple of classes. I hadn't taken any classes yet. This is all like, I'm trying
There's
to
so much.
figure my timeline of what all happened. I knew of the crankies because of the videos that I watched with Anna and Elizabeth. And then anytime any type of folklore thing came up, I just thought that maybe this is an avenue that I need to travel to get closer to my destination.
That makes sense.
Yeah. And so the professor I had, Rachel Golson, Dr. Golson, I told her about what my plans were. And so she, I believe, went out of her way to do a specific unit on cemetery iconography, which she shared the same love. And I didn't learn so much about the symbolism itself, but she just made me aware of, that was another way that the headstone could speak for the person who was no longer there.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
And I'm jumping back and forth all over the place, but
That's all right.
I'm just keeping the progression going in my mind. So you do all of this, you get it quote done, but then you mentioned the festival concept, and I wonder if you could kind of go back to that for just a minute and talk about, you've been planning it sounds like mentally for a while. What was the point where you were like, okay, let's go ahead and set a date, and then kind of the process that went into that up to it getting postponed?
The class that I had at the John C. Campbell was the initiation in really making this thing come to life. So I knew that and meeting Sue Truman, and she and I becoming good friends and being my mentor week to week, even after the class was over. I asked her if she would come to do the Midwest Cranky Festival. And she said, well, when are we going to do it? And so she put me on the spot, actually. And I said, okay, it's October. Let's do November, December, January, February, March. I want to do it before 6 months, because if I let it extend further than 6 months, I may drop the ball and it may not happen. Well, the ball was dropped, but not by me, because of the circumstances of COVID hitting us. But I have the venue. It's all paid for. It's waiting just for the right time again. As I said before, I had asked several friends or badgered them into helping me with this, and because it didn't come together, they were kind of, I don't want this to sound bad, they were kind of let off the deadline hook. And so their work was partially done but didn't materialize, and because the event didn't happen, their fruit didn't ripen.
It's deadlines can be helpful in a lot of ways.
Deadlines can be helpful. I have to have a deadline. I have to. And most of the time I ignore it until like 48 hours before. And then I work day and night without sleep to get it accomplished. Oh, gosh.
Well, I mean, whenever it happens, I assume that like Sue is she still planning to come hypothetically whenever it ends up happening? It was there are still people who are interested, even if some of the crankies didn't get done as originally planned.
Yeah, well, what was going to happen was that Sue was going to be coming from Seattle, and she was going to be bringing as many as 8 different crankies. So she was going to ship them, and she was going to be the majority of the show, and then we were just going to accent with my friends, the artist. And my purpose was to get it out there into the community that these are crankies and this is what you can do with them, with Sue being the main headliner. And then I wanted to sprinkle through local artists so that after Sue left, then I could still use them to grow my festival. And it'll happen again, and some of those same people will probably still contribute. It's just that it's been on the back burner for them. And I don't know if Sue will still come. I would like to have her come, but now I've kind of changed my focus, where instead of having someone come in from another part of the country, to just build on what I have here, because there's so much talent, not only visually with the visual artists, but with the musical people too. And I would like, in getting this festival together, I would like it to be done to live music, because there's copyright and all these types of things where you really, you can't use recorded music unless you have permission, and it just enriches the experience anyway with live music, And so I wanted to pair up my local visual artist with local musicians and build it that way.
Seems like it would make it more of a sensory experience if you have both components that are live at the same time.
Yeah.
Well, this is kind of like beyond just crankies, and this is something I don't know much about, so this may be a poorly worded question, but I think of the concept of folk arts and all these different types of art forms that kind of fall under this umbrella. Is it, from your perspective, from what you've seen and why you're interested in all of this, why is it important that this sort of art be part of our culture and also evolve with time? Like, even in terms of crankies, they didn't disappear, but they kind of maybe went more
underground.
Yeah, but they came back. And why do you think it's important to continue this sort of work, I guess, is the bottom line?
I don't know. Just being the age that I am and seeing what I see in younger generations of people, where even as babies, before they can talk, a lot of times parents will just hand them the phone to entertain them. Mm-hmm. And so, of no fault of their own, the babies or the parents lose this type of personal communication, I think. Mm-hmm. And it's easy to find things. I mean, I enjoy being on the computer and looking things up and all that, but there's just endearment to being able to communicate with somebody face to face. And in doing the crankies, even though there might not be the actual personal face, there's the storytelling, and there's the music and the theatrics that can all come together and catch a person's interest. And maybe that, maybe they're there for the music, maybe they're there for the art, maybe they're there for the story, maybe they're for all of it. But in getting that initial exposure to a cranky, it can lead you down different avenues of interest where maybe you're not going to find what you want on the internet. Maybe you need to go talk to the oldest person in town. Maybe you need to go learn how to dance from Pat Dennis, who does clogging. Because as good as it might look on the internet, you need that personal experience to actually get it, to get the love. And folk art is that way, It is. It's very important. It's very, very important.
A story of star-crossed lovers, the folk ballad Lady Margaret dates back to the 1600s. Lady Margaret was standing in her own room door, a comb in her long yellow hair, when who did she spy but sweet William and his bride, as to the churchyard they drew near. The day passed away and the night came on. Most of the men were asleep. Lady Margaret appeared, all dressed in white, standing at his bed feet. She said, "How do you like your bed? And how do you like your sheet? And how do you like your fair young bride that's laying in your bed asleep?" He said, "Very well do I like my bed, much better do I like my sheet, but most of all that fair young girl standing at my bed feet. Then once he kissed her lily white hand, and twice he kissed her cheek. 3 times he kissed her cold corpsey lips, then he fell into her arms asleep.